Hi everyone, my name's Mike and welcome to this video from Mider Travel. This is part 2 of our first time cruising hints, tips and information. Now I was hoping to do this in 2 parts, but there is so much information that I'm probably going to have to do parts 3 and 4. So part 2 today, I'm going to just cover cabins and also excursions. And I think that way you won't end up having to watch an hour video, that it will be a lot quicker for you to watch. Hopefully there will be lots of information. I'm quite surprised how many things I've written down that I feel that you should know. So before any further ado, let's get going and I will try and get these through these as quickly as possible. If you haven't already subscribed, then please consider subscribing. It doesn't cost anything. And also the reason we all ask for you to subscribe is that it really helps our content get pushed out to more people. Also, if you want to receive notifications when we release our further videos, then please push the notifications button, and a like's always nice as well. So without any further ado, let's get on with these hints and tips. So in the last video, we looked at embarkation. So let's start this one by looking at cabins. Now, when you've boarded, we would say the first thing perhaps to go and do is to find your cabin. They are all numbered as you get to the floor that you're on. The biggest problem you'll have is always remembering when you come out of the lift, whether you go left or right. I'm a nightmare for that. But once you've worked that out, the numbers are easily seen with the cabin numbers. Find your cabin. Now, you will have been given one of these. Each person in the party in the room will have a card. Treat this like a credit card. It is your way in and out your room. You will need it every time you go on and off the boat. You will need it for any purchases you make around the ship. You will need it ordering drinks, because on here it will tell them AI or premium. Now, sometimes they ask for it, sometimes they don't. Particularly if you're ordering non-premium, they tend not to ask for it. But it is important you keep this with you at all times. Now, while we're talking about this card, obviously any charges on here will go onto your cabin account. It's important that you use the Navigate app to keep an eye on your account. Last cruise we were on, we had a charge put on twice, and it was for one of the specialty restaurants, so it was expensive. So keep an eye as the cruise goes on that you're not getting things on there that shouldn't be on there. And certainly the last night before your cruise, make sure that you check it, because then you will have time to go to reception and get it taken off. So when you go in your room, the first thing you usually see, depending what type of room you got, is the beds. Now, the beds can be in different configurations. When we went on one of the cruises, ours were together in a double bed situation. We like our beds apart. Why? Because 2 reasons for us. One, it gives us more space, particularly if you've got an outside cabin. It's good to be able to get to the window easy. And 2, if we need to get up for the toilet in the night, we're not sort of struggling to get round the bed. So we prefer our configuration apart into singles. Now, if the beds are not the way you want them to be, just have a word with the cabin stewards, who are always around or not far away, or ring reception, and you'll find in no time at all somebody will come along and put those beds apart from you. Now, on the bed you will usually have 2 blue towels. These blue towels are for your use as beach towels, and there is a charge if you lose them. And when we were on board, and it's probably gone up a little bit now, but when we were on board, it was £10 a towel. So look after those blue towels, because if you lose them, you will have to pay. We still believe the best thing to do is to take a microfiber towel. They're so much lighter to carry around everywhere. Now, a lot of people ask if suitcases can be put under the beds. No, they can't, unless you've got a very thin suitcase. There is just not enough room. So we had to store our suitcases in the wardrobes, and there was plenty of space for us to do that. Now, let's have a look at the wardrobes. And in the wardrobes, there are plenty of shelves, drawers, And also hangers. We have never had a problem being short of hangers on any Marella ship. Check that you have the right number of life jackets in your wardrobe. And also you will have a safe for use. Now, the safe is not big enough for a laptop. You will get an iPad in there, you will get a tablet, a Kindle, and obviously really good place for storing your money and your important documents, but not a laptop. Now, in addition to the storage with the wardrobes, you also have drawers next to the beds, and there's also drawers, small ones, on the table. And you can get shoes and stuff under the bed, so that's what we tend to use that for. Now, sockets are not great, certainly not on Marella Voyager. We found on Discovery 2 there were 4 sockets, 2 American and 2 European, and we didn't have a problem on there. But Voyager, we had just 1 socket, and I found that totally inadequate. Fortunately, I took an extension lead. If you do take an extension lead, then make sure it is non-surge protected. You are not allowed to take surge protected leads, extension leads, onto cruise ships. Now, I believe that you may have an extra plug on Voyager now if you're on an inside or an outside room, because they've taken the fridges out. And so when we went on Explorer, where the fridge had also been taken out, we found that we had an extra plug where the fridge used to be, and we also had the cupboard where the fridge was, which again became a useful little storage space. But I think, I'm not too sure now, but I don't think many of the inside, outside or balcony cabins have got fridges any longer. If you know why they've taken the fridges out, I would love to know, so please put it in the comments below. Discovery 2 was really good because there were USB lamps in each, USB ports in each of the lamps, which was really useful. And what we liked on Discovery 2 as well is there was a little sofa in there, where you didn't get that on the Voyager or Explorer. So USBs pretty well covered on Discovery 2, but Voyager, where one of the plugs was, they put something that you couldn't remove that gave you access to 2 USB ports. Personally, I'd rather have had another plug, or I'd rather have had one of those that could be removed. Now, if you want laundry service while you are on the ship, there is no ironing room, there is no washing or drying room. The only way that you can get laundry done on a Marella ship is to use the laundry bag. In the wardrobe, you will find a price list and a bag. Now, we would say the best value is you can fill a bag, and the cost is approximately £17 to get it laundered. Otherwise, if you wanted to do things individually, then you can get the prices on the sheet in the wardrobe. Moving around the bedroom, for anyone that needs it, there is a hairdryer, usually found in one of the drawers where the desk is. Additionally, in the bathroom, you've got the rail for drying clothes. And we actually found the shower sizes and the water pressure and heat really good, and we found that on both the Explorer, the Voyager, and indeed Discovery 2. Discovery 2, of course, has got the curtain, the shower curtain, which we didn't like so much, but actually it didn't bother us as much as we thought it would. Explorer and Voyager have got the glass doors, which is so much better. Now, in the bathroom, you will find your towels. You get the bath towels, the hand towels, and I have to say that they are really good quality. You can have those changed daily if you wish. If you leave the towels on the floor, the cabin staff will change them. Your rooms can be checked and done daily, and you also get a turn down service at night. So if you think at night, be careful what you leave lying around, because the cabin staff will be in, unless of course there are two signs that you can put in your slot outside your door. One is do not disturb, and the other one is please clean the room. We find these really useful, and although we don't get our towels changed every day, we think of the planet, we sort of did every other day put our towels down to be changed, and it was never a problem. They were always back that day, and it's a really good service. Now I'm going to talk about cabin staff and also your fellow passengers. Now, when you are in your room, please consider that you could have people either side of you, above you, below you. Keep the noise down and respect the other passengers. We have to say that every cruise we've been on, that we've been around have been excellent. We've not heard a thing. So respect your fellow passengers. Now, I've got to say a word for the cabin stewards. The cabin stewards are absolutely amazing, and they are probably one of the hardest working staff on the ship. They are constantly there, going up and down with their trolleys, always ready to help you, always meeting you with a smile. And I would imagine, if you're really lucky, and it's happened to us on every ship, so I think they probably do it for everybody, is you will come back to the cabin in the evening and find some amazing towel creations. I have to say, some of the ones I've seen on Marella have been a cut above the places that we've seen them also. So excellent towel creations. I'm sure it'll give you a laugh. In your room, you will also have a telephone. Now, the first Marella ship we went on, Discovery 2, the phone wasn't working, but a call to reception soon got that fixed. But we've used the phones quite a bit, particularly on our second and third Marella cruise, where we had friends with us. You are able to dial not only reception and room service, but you can also dial other rooms. And this is not restricted to just dialing from your cabin. If you are around the ship, there are phones at loads of places, and you can call down to your cabin or anyone else's cabin from those phones. So you haven't got to go all the way back to the cabin to send a message. So really useful. Pick your phone up and just make sure that it is working. In your room, you have tea making facilities. You don't get a lot and not much choice. You also don't get a lot of milk. So what we would suggest is, when you are in the buffet, go and have a look at the tea selections, the coffee selections. You've got all sorts of specialty teas, fruit teas. You've got numerous choices of coffee. We always go and help ourselves to a handful of those, take them back to our cabin. When we had the fridge, we only had the fridge on one, we used to take the milk back there, but I would still take a little bit of milk each day, because all you get is those little bit of cartons of milk. So a little bit so it doesn't sour, and take those back to your room and you will have a lot more choice to have. Now, I just want to go back to the bathroom and say there is quite a severe step to get into the bathrooms, and they can't do anything about that. Obviously, the piping's got to go somewhere. But it took me ages to realise that just inside the door there's a handrail. Now, I do have knee problems, and I was finding it a bit awkward to get in and out the bathroom. But there are handrails there, so locate where the handrails are and use them. Also, if you're somebody that needs to go to the toilet in the night when it's pitch black, then it's well worth considering taking a little mini torch so that it is to hand when you need to get up. Unless, of course, you've got the torch on your phone, because it is quite dark trying to get to that bathroom and watching that step. So little mini torch, or make sure your phone's on the side of the bed for use. Let's look at the television. Now, you get a decent television in the rooms. It's usually able to swivel, so you can move it where you want to. What's available on there? Well, I used to love it, because they used to have the entertainment manager with different guests from different places around the ship. They would talk about what was happening the next day, where you were, what was happening on the ship, and it was a good watch if you were doing nothing in your cabin. The other thing I would say is there is limited choice of television. I used it just to put the news on in the mornings. There were a couple of entertainment channels, and the other thing we used it for, if you're in an inside cabin and worried that you're going to miss that window like I was, then you can on the television put live cam views from the front of the ship and also from the pool deck, which just made it seem a little bit more like an outside room. Each night, as part of the turn down service, you will get, as well as the towel creation, what's called the cruise news. Now, I am a massive fan of the cruise news, and I am very concerned that eventually this will disappear totally and we will just be left with the Navigate app, which is okay, but I think it needs a lot more work doing on it because it can be quite difficult to maneuver your way around it. I love these because it just gives you everything, and it's a nice little read. I love going back to the cabin at night, picking this up and seeing what's happening the next day. And when you've had your turn down service at night, you also get a little Marella cruise chocolate. Now, I actually quite like these chocolates, but what I do is, instead of having them one a night, I save them up during the cruise, and then we take them on the journey back home with us. And they're just nice to have as a treat on the plane with your cup of tea or coffee. And the other thing that we like to do is there is the snack shack on the pool deck. Now, if you go to the snack shack during the day, they do cookies, really nice cookies. Take some back to the room and you've always got a cookie with your tea or coffee. Right, on your final night of the cruise, you will have a leaflet put through your door saying time to say goodbye, and this will have all the information that you need about your journey home. You needn't worry about booking in for your flights or luggage labels, as they will be delivered to your room. Now, make sure before you leave that you do a thorough check, double check, and another check, because you would be amazed how many people leave stuff in the room. Don't be one of those people. Have a good look round. Now, usually on your last night, you will be asked to put your hold suitcases outside your cabin door, and it's usually by 2 a.m. in the morning. When you wake up the next morning, they will be gone. And if you've got your hold luggage, if you've got your cabin luggage, then they will usually be somewhere on the ship that you can store these until nearer the time that you depart, so you haven't got to lug them everywhere with you. Right, I think I'm pretty much getting towards the end of the cabin. Just one thing I missed out. There is a blind on the windows if you're in an outside room. So it will be dark in there if that's how you like it during the night. Also, an obvious one, but accidents do happen. If you do have a balcony, then don't sit on the railings. Be careful at the railings. Because people have fallen off them and you don't want to be the next one. And finally, the cabin staff, I've already said how hard they work, how they'll take the time to always be there and get you anything you need, do these beautiful towel creations. Consider leaving them an additional tip. People have said, do we leave sweets or do we leave tips? Leave tips, leave money. That is what is going to be far more useful to them than a bag of sweets. Right, I hope you found those hints and tips useful regarding the cabins. If you've got any more that you can add to what I've covered, then please put them down below, because I know that there are going to be other things that I didn't think of. But let's now move on to excursions, which is a bit of a biggie. Sorry, you can hear the dog going through the cat flap. Excursions, yes. Now, one of the things I really hate about the excursions is the fact that you can't see a list of what's available until about 3 months before, and that's when you use the cruise planner, and things usually start to appear on there with about 3 months to go. Now, I'm somebody that likes to plan well in advance, and I do find that a bit frustrating. So one of the things I've started to do is, as soon as I can, I do a list and show a video of all the excursions for the cruises that we are doing. So if you're doing Taste of the Tropics, Paradise Islands, the Adriatic Dreams, then we have got excursion lists on videos on our channel. I guess the biggest question that we see regarding excursions is, should you book with Marella or should you book with a local company, or just wait until you get off the boat and take your chances there? So let's get through our feelings. When we did our first cruise, we absolutely panicked about missing the boat, that we would miss the time getting back. And so we were very reticent to do anything other than the ship's excursions. And I think first time cruisers, it's probably worth the safety and security that if you go on a ship booked excursion with Marella, that you are not going to be left behind. That if you're delayed somewhere, if the trip's delayed, then they will have to wait for you. Now, of course, you haven't got that luxury if you book a local tour company. What I would say is certainly look at local companies. We always look at Voyager, and we also look at TripAdvisor. We search for local companies, and we have a look at what they've got to offer. I would also say take a look at Facebook pages. All the Marella ships, there are pages for, and if you search, you will find them. And ask the questions on these pages. You know, how did you do this trip? Have you got a good recommendation for doing this trip? And I'm sure you will get lots of feedback. Obviously, we always say if you're booking on the internet with a local company, then make sure they have a good cancellation policy. You need the ability to cancel right up until the day before, because itineraries do often change. Sometimes if the weather isn't good, you'll miss that port. So you need to be able to cancel if you can. Now, also with a local company, make sure that they have got the right certificates and approvals in place on their website. If you take the chance when you come off the ship, then you will find people, particularly we found in the Caribbean. Caribbean are little islands, they really rely on tourism, and the minute you get off the boat into the port, you will have people everywhere trying to sell you an excursion. Now, the good thing about coming off the boat and going with somebody is that you can haggle a price and probably get it cheaper than anywhere else. The bad things, do you really know who you're going with and how good they are? And also you could be put on a minibus, a jeep or whatever, and be sat there a long time waiting for it to fill up. So we probably wouldn't do it for an excursion. We would certainly come off the ship and look for a taxi if you wanted to go somewhere like a nice beach. It's really well set up for that. But as I say, for first time cruisers, I think look at doing the majority of your cruises with Marella, because you will not be stressing, because the last thing you want to do is be one of those pier runners because the boat is just on the way out. It will be a very expensive business trying to catch the boat up by getting one island to another or one place to another. So certainly it's a big thing to consider. We'd also say with excursions, be careful not to burn yourself out. Somewhere like the Caribbean, Marella are really good at doing the back-to-back cruises, and we did our last one, and we had 12 stops in 2 weeks. Now, you will burn yourself out if you try and do something at every island. What we try and do is look at where we can do something ourselves straight from the boat. So islands like St. Martin, Grenada, they have water taxis right next to the boats that will take you across to a beach, and it's just a nice, easy, relaxing day. We've looked sometimes at ports. Can we walk somewhere? In St. Vincent, we walked to the botanical gardens. It wasn't brilliant, but we saw a bit of local life we'd rather have not seen. But it was an interesting walk up there. Would we recommend it? No. But as I say, sometimes some people even just like when they're at a port, if they think there's nothing too much I want on there, have a sea day, because the boat is lovely when you're in port. You will have so much more room. It will be so much more peaceful. So sometimes, be careful not to burn yourself out. One thing I will say to be careful of, some people have sort of asked, can we do 2 trips on the same day? Now, the problem with booking Marella cruises, you don't know what time they are. So it wasn't till we were on the boat and we have the tickets delivered to our cabin that we found out what times they were. And I was quite shocked. I don't know why, but I thought they'd all be morning. But some of them weren't till 1:30 in the afternoon. So if you book something beforehand, you're going to have a problem, because it might clash with a Marella trip if you want to do one Marella and one sort of local company. Or maybe it can be done if you do local companies where you have more control over what times you book. The only thing we would say is, to be safe, is try and aim to be back to the ship at least 2 hours before they say the final boarding is. Now, the final boarding time will be given on the Navigate, on the Cruise News, and it will also be displayed as you leave the ship. Now, remember, leaving the ship, you will need your cabin card, and keep that safe. Also, be careful, be aware. Marella probably would have told you, again, by the Navigate or Cruise News, whether you need your passport or visa. One important thing to know that first-time cruisers might fall foul of is, if you're booking a trip with a local company, then be aware that the time that you are shown in port is not the time that you will be able to disembark the boat. Now, when you see the time, often it's 8 a.m. in the morning, will show you as being in port, then you need to we usually allow at least an hour to get off the ship and go for our excursion. Now, usually we find it's about half an hour later. The captain will usually come over the tannoy and announce to everybody that the ship is now ready for you to disembark, and he will always give you the location. I should say, though, if you look on the Cruise News, like we did earlier, it gives you the port info. It tells you the name of the pier, which is quite important, particularly if you go off elsewhere and you need to get a taxi back. You can tell them which pier it is. Sometimes they are quite a way apart, so you need to make sure that you know this information on here. Okay, hopefully with that being said, you won't have any problems with getting off for your excursion. Make sure, if you're going on a trip, that you take some small cash notes, because these tour guides, if you go on a trip, will expect to be tipped. Now, we made this mistake when we went to Jamaica, to Ocasrias Falls, and we had no cash with us. And we were followed quite a bit, and they made it known they weren't happy that we hadn't given a tip. And I felt bad we weren't able to give a tip. And I do think that it would probably save any embarrassment or awkwardness if Marella included a small tip within the cost of the excursion. Personally, I think that would be much better. But when going abroad, onto the port, make sure that you have the cash that you need. Make sure that it's euros, dollars, that you have the right money, or that you have a card. If you've got a card that doesn't charge for purchases or withdrawals from speed banks, then all the better. When going on an excursion or into the port, make sure you take water. Water is so important. You will get dehydrated, you will become poorly if you don't take regular water. These islands are hot, which is nice, but don't fall foul of the sun, which brings me on to suntan protection. Get your suntan lotion and make sure that you cover up well, because otherwise you don't want to get burned. Now, again, for when you're going into the port, make sure that you know what the local customs are, such as Caribbean islands. Certain islands you can't wear camouflage. It is reserved for their forces only, and you will get into trouble if you go onto port wearing camouflage. So be very careful. Also, if you're going into a temple or mosque or something, make sure that you have got the appropriate clothing. Now, one thing that I didn't know, I thought, and I did do it once in the Caribbean, I took a couple of sandwiches in my backpack. And I've since learned that you're not supposed to do that. And also, you're not allowed to bring any food back on the ship unless it's in shop packaging, unopened. So be very careful. I got away with it, but I won't do it again. Do not take food off the boat. You could get in trouble. And do not take it back on unless it's sealed. You are also not allowed to take alcohol bought from the port or island back onto the boat. If you do, they will confiscate it. You will get it back at the end of the cruise, but don't think you'll be able to use it on the ship. You won't, because every time you go back on board, you have to go through a baggage check. So if you've got stuff in there that you shouldn't have, they are going to find it. So be very careful. I don't think there's much else to cover now on excursions. I will just have a look and see there's nothing else. Right, the other important things with excursions is to use Navigate to give feedback. Now, if you've had a poor excursion, don't do nothing. Do the review on the Navigate app, because Marella will, if an excursion starts getting bad reviews on a regular basis, then they will consider changing it. And I think that's quite important that we have our say. I have to say, we've only really been on one disappointing Marella trip. Most of them have been really good. But yes, make sure you do that feedback, because Marella need to know whether these trips are making their passengers happy or sad. Right, I think I've covered as much as I can on this video. So that concludes Cabins and Excursions. The next one, I'm going to look at food and drink and restaurants, and obviously come up with as much as we can for that as well. If you can think of anything that I haven't put or I haven't stated that you think, oh, people need to know that, make sure you put it down below, because I love to keep learning things as well. Or I'll think, oh, I should have thought of that. If you haven't subscribed, then I know I'm asking a second time, but it's so important to us guys, and it doesn't cost you anything. Please hit the subscribe button and the like if you've got some use out of this video. That's a big help as well. And if you want to know when parts 3, 4, or however many more to come, then hit that bell as well, so you get notifications of our forthcoming videos. A big thank you to everyone for watching. We really appreciate you coming and supporting the channel, and hopefully we'll get lots more out there for you. Take care everyone, and happy cruising.